All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, ready for the SpongeBob SquarePants run. How do you feel about that, people?
If you don't like SpongeBob, something's wrong with you.
Something's wrong?
Something's wrong if you don't like SpongeBob.
Exactly, right? It's SpongeBob SquarePants. He's a mainstay. He's
amazing.
a pillar of American culture. SpongeBob is the American dream.
He's an icon.
Yes.
He's the embodiment of everything that we stand for around the world. But definitely, this is the continuation of the Saturday morning cartoon block. So we had Hamtaro earlier on. Now we're moving on to SpongeBob. So how do you feel about, being part of this, Zach?
I feel like it's a very cool experience to be able to run in a marathon, especially one where you come and you actually sit down at the event. I've wanted to come to DreamHack for a while, and this gave me the opportunity to do so, while also showing off a very cool-looking speed game. It's very technical, and it has a lot of frame-perfect tricks in it and stuff like that. There's a bunch of movement tech. It's really cool. As we were
looking into it, we were surprised to learn that there was a lot of active players in SRL
it's got
running
like
this game.
runners or something like that.
It's crazy. You wouldn't think, right? You would think this is just a meme game, but a lot of people, and it's not like it's an easy game either. This game is tough as nails.
It's very hard. The time I got, it required about 8-9 months of grinding. It was very vigorous. It was very hard.
Yeah, a lot of people just dismiss. Sometimes they look at the intellectual property that the game's based on. They're like, oh, SpongeBob or Hamtaro. There's a lot of work that goes into a speedrun, no matter where it comes from. And Zach's going to show you exactly how it's done with SpongeBob. So without further ado, take it away.
All right, on my couch, I've got my friend Jonah and I've got Rubber Duck Assassin. They're just kind of here to help explain some stuff and give some moral support. So yeah, are you guys ready?
Are you guys ready?
All right, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so the first thing I'm going to address is why I'm playing on the original Xbox. Because if you've ever played on the original Xbox, you'll know the controller's horrible. It's a very big console. It's actually bigger than the Xbox One. And the reason is it's actually the fastest. It's faster than the Xbox 360 by 40 seconds. It's faster than the PS2 by about 3 minutes, and it's faster than the PlayStation 2 by about 7 minutes. It took me a while to get a console that was fast enough because every load should be about 5 seconds. So that's why we play on the original Xbox. Now we're actually already coming up to the first trick. If you've ever played this game, you'll know that there's a hand that will take you when you try to go out of bounds, like that. But since the first level is right by an area where you can get grabbed, if you actually load into the level with the hand out, it will just completely remove it, so we can jump out of bounds and do a bunch of cool stuff with it. So now we're loading into Jellyfish Fields, which is the first level of the game. And the last run was played in Japanese because it was faster. This game, it doesn't matter because A, it wasn't released in Japan, and B, you can just skip all the text anyway. So the collectibles of this game are golden spatulas. You have to get 75 of them to enter the final boss. And we do them very quickly. I think the slowest spatula in the game is like less than 2 minutes. So for getting 75 of them, that's pretty fast. So what we did there is we did an out-of-bounds jump to completely skip an entire section of the level. So normally we don't play with autosave, but I decided to for marathon reasons, and that's why the saving is still there, because I died during a save area. Now this will actually allow you to go on the sand, because when you disable the hand, you still can't go on the sand because it'll bring it back, but this allows you to go on the sand. So in the old cheap percent route, we would do this, and then we would walk out of bounds and go to the very final area. But it has no use in any percent because there's no point in time where you have to go on the sand for a long period of time. So this will just go away the next time I get a spatula. So right here, we're about to just completely skip an entire section by jumping up onto Jellyfish Rock. Because the spacing, if you do it properly, you can just completely skip it. Now, what I just collected right there, I collected a sock. Now, Patrick lost them because he's Patrick. And if you collect 10 of them, you can trade them in for a golden spatula. So we actually collect 30 socks in this run because all of them are either in the route or 2 or 3 seconds. So that's a quick way to get another spatula. So we get 3 spatulas like that. So that's it for Jellyfish Fields. We're actually about to come up to the beginning of Jellyfish Caves, which is where Dilemma Skip is. Now, there are sliding sections in this game, and they are honestly part of one of the most fun sections in this game, but this one's rather short. So you just slide down this slide, you're getting shiny objects, which you can exchange for golden spatulas to Mr. Krabs later. Here's another sock we get right here. And then at the end of the slide, there's another sock we get
That was a ton of fun.
So,
I should do
I'm
it
about to
again
do a
sometime.
cutscene skip. And basically, oh no, I missed. So basically what you do is you jump and you trigger this cutscene and then you die. So it just completely skips the cutscene. So we're actually coming up to another damage boost right here. We're gonna see if we can do this. We call this Dilemma Skip because you just completely skip Patrick's dilemma. Oh. Yeah, the way you jump after you come out of a damage animation is really weird because when you're switching from an LCD to a CRT, the timings are messed up, so you can go for a 1 frame and then just completely miss. Like that, again. This trick isn't a 1 frame, but it's very precise. It's one of the tricks that beginners have a lot of trouble with, which apparently I'm a beginner right now. So, damage boosting in this game, let me go into that a bit more. There's 6 damage animations that SpongeBob has, and each of them end at different points. There we go, we finally got it, and oh my gosh, I almost just fell off. So then we talk to Patrick, and he gives us this spatula. And then we just completely skip the rest of this level, because we come back later with a trick later that involves 2 frame-perfect tricks. So we just go back to Bikini Bottom, and then Mr. Krabs is like, give me money, and we're like, we don't have enough. Sorry. We'll come back later when we do. So Squidward says something along the lines of, why don't you just jump 10 times to annoy me? So we do exactly that, and he gives us a golden spatula. Go figure. We used to get the sock in this house by breaking everything, but it's like an 8-second sock. It's really, really slow. So we're coming up to one of the easier tricks in the game. No one really has trouble with this because you just kind of jump, jump, and then jump, and you just completely skip. There's 2 buttons you have to hit. You jump on these balloons, you get another golden spatula. So that's, I think, 5 now? No, 6. Yes, 6. Okay. So now we're going into downtown Bikini Bottom, which is honestly the slowest section in the game, but I'm going to try to do my best to explain a couple other mechanics while we're here. So the taxis, they take you to each respective area, and each area requires a certain amount of shiny objects, except every area has 1 you could get into regardless. So, yeah, that was Jellyfish Fields for this area. So right here, we're supposed to press all 4 buttons, but they're destroyed by the tiki. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to let the sinks blow everything up. But what we do is, just because of jump spacing and the developers didn't think properly, you could just literally jump on top of them. And then you just smash the buttons. And this gives us enough shiny objects to get into the sea needle, which we'll be going into later. And right there, what I did is I just pressed A and then I pressed B. Like, I don't know exactly what the timing is. It's like a few frames later, and you could just completely, you do just enough of a jump to get onto the button, and then you slam.
So how does the money routing work for this game?
So the money routing is, it's really weird. By the time you get here, since I missed Dilemma Skip a few times, I have some extra ones. But the first purchase of the game, you have to get into Sea Needle, and you have to have 2,100. So just based on Dilemma Skip and this grinding, you have 2,100. And after that, we don't have to make another purchase until, I think, late game, very late game. So you have enough shiny objects. By the time you get into Murmler, you have to make a clan purchase there. And then after that, you have to purchase in Sand Mountain. And then there's one more after that. So the shiny routing is very lenient. There's a lot of different routes you can take. So what we're doing right here is we're just damage manipulating him because when he's taunting, you can't get hit. So you just jump on top of him. So the health in this game is underwear because it's SpongeBob. You gotta have comedy like that. And the golden underwear we collected like on top of Squidward's house, it gives you more. So you can have like it's up to 6, but in the run we only get 5 because getting the 6 won't cost like 3 or 4 seconds, and it adds nothing to the run. So we're coming into Sea Needle right here. This is one of the slower parts of the game. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to destroy all the tikis here. So we're just gonna do that. We're gonna hop, and you get to bungee, and this would be a good time to explain the enemies in this game. So normally, as you saw earlier, there were robots, and as the more you progress into the game, the harder the robots get. Like, these are tartar bots. These are really annoying to deal with. The higher up the robot, the more shiny objects it gets. And the Duplicatortrons give a lot of shiny objects. They give like 50 or 100 at a time. So they spawn the robots, and then you get shiny objects from them as well. So we're collecting wheels because Mrs. Puff lost her wheels to her boats, and we need to collect 12 of them to give them back, and we'll get a golden spatula. So there's actually, everything in this game is on a cycle. There's actually a theory going around that the entire game is on one global timer, and that everything is cycle-based. So everything is theoretically predictable, but it's too random and far-fetched. There's been consistent methods for a lot of things, like Sea Needle has a consistent method that I just performed. A lot of later cycle-based games, or cycle-based levels, load in. We think it goes on when you load in, so you could predict every time. But there is some RNG in this game. It has very little though, but I think the biggest section of RNG is in Industrial Park later in the game, about 40 minutes in.
So just as a curious question, how slow is using GameCube and Wii?
GameCube and Wii are 3 minutes slower, and the controller is worse for cruise boosting later in the game, which is 2 frame-perfect inputs. You just press L and left trigger and B at the same time. But since the GameCube controller has wonky triggers, it's really weird to perform on that console because it feels like you have to press the trigger earlier than you press the button. It's honestly probably the hardest controller to run on, even though the Xbox controller feels like bricks and it drops inputs if you don't have a really good one. That's another issue with running on Xbox. The controller does drop a lot of inputs if you use it frequently. The world record holder has a really big issue with that. He has to buy a controller almost every month because of how much he plays. So we're going into downtown rooftops right here. We're playing as Sandy. This is one of the only times you see her in the run, and it's for a good 3 minutes. So what we're about to do right here is these bus stops switch characters, and there's a spatula on top of this roof that normally you'd have to go and you'd have to pay a clam, but if you jump low enough, you don't hit the invisible wall trigger, and you can just do a jump spin and get the spatula and just go under the wall, just completely skipping an entire section and saving a bunch of money. And then you switch back to Sandy. So we're about to do a little bit of a sequence break right here. We're going to skip a lot of stuff in downtown rooftops and just completely destroy the section with Sandy's lasso, because her lasso, there's a lot of places where the developers didn't intend for her to be able to grab, but you're just barely able to do it because of the lasso height you need to be. There's a couple finicky ones, but it's rather easy to get down. The one I did earlier was the hardest one, honestly. The one getting into rooftops. So normally what you're supposed to do right here is you're supposed to get on this trampoline and go and do an entire jumping section, and it's really annoying. But since the charter bot is solid, we can just jump on top of him. And then we just ledge grab up here. And we skip a lot. And then you just float over here. You jump on this fence. Get in this pipe. Slide over. Grab another wheel. We have to grab this wheel because we're going faster. And then you just fly back. And then we just skipped like 2 minutes worth of gameplay.
Yeehaw.
Just because you could jump on top of tartar bots. Yeehaw. So, these enemies right here, the Chucks, they are the most annoying thing in this entire game. Because if they hit you with your missile, there are 3 parts where if they hit you with your missile, you can lose minutes. So, it's very crucial that you learn how to manipulate them properly. So we're coming into Lighthouse right here. This is just a robot section. Set, go. So now we just destroy duplicatortrons. You do that one. And then you jump on this door. You do a bash to turn yourself around, and you get a sock. That skips a trampoline. It saves, I don't know how much it saves. It saves probably about a minute if you were to do it with a trampoline, because you'd have to wait for the cutscene. So, this was found a while ago, but it wasn't put into effect until about 2 months ago. You clip that steering wheel, not 2 months ago, more like 8 months ago, honestly. You clip for that steering wheel, and then you just kill everything, because killing things is fun. And then you get the golden spatula. And by now we have all 12 wheels, so we can go and we can warp to Mrs. Puff to give us the amount of wheels we need to make another golden spatula, and that'll get us up to 13. And then we're done with downtown. So that was the slowest section of the game. From here on out, it's really, really fast-paced. So this is Patrick. He has a sock laying by him, but he doesn't know it for some reason. So you just pick that up, and then you just walk past him. So we're about to come up to a one-frame jump, which, judging by earlier, is going to go smoothly. Right?
First try.
All right, so now we're in Goo Lagoon. This is home to a lot of really weird tricks, particularly the sponge glide, which I think a lot of people are going to enjoy. So Goo Lagoon is really weird because you visit it twice, and you do a lot of things in ways you were really, really not intended to do. This is another brutal level for beginners as well. So sometimes, depending on the cycle of that robot, you can get him to hit you, and you can do a damage boost based on a slide and completely skip jumping on this fat guy, but it's too random. So we're about to do a one-frame jump.
Ow! Ow! Ouch! Ow!
Or we're not.
Ow! Ow! Ow!
All right, I'll just do a backup sock. It's no big deal. So this trick is really weird to set up on a CRT because the picture quality is so low, and normally I just got the one frame. So this is really weird to set up on a CRT because the angle is super precise, but it looks like I got it. All right, we got sponge glide first try. That's one of the hardest tricks to do on a CRT, especially when you're used to an LCD. And we got the second one first try. All right. If you look at his face, it looks really weird. We do 2 sponge glides in this run. We do that one, and then we do another one in Sandy's Dream later. It's actually faster to do another trick in Sandy's Dream, but the world record holder is the only one that does that because it's a one frame, and you can't practice that one frame throughout the entire run. So now we're breaking up bumper boats. All right, cool, we got that. So then what we do is we hit this checkpoint, and then we hop on this slide in Texas style. So, Goo Lagoon Pier, there's one thing I want to mention. There is one regional difference between NTSC and PAL, and that is that trick I just did, Spun Glide, is almost impossible on PAL. We don't know if it's the frame rate, we don't know if it's the resolution, but it is near impossible to do on PAL. So, you lose almost a minute on PAL just because you can't do Sponge Glide. A good friend of mine who's a PAL runner, he has like a 104 or something on PAL, not doing Sponge Glide. He says if he was able to do Sponge Glide, he would easily beat his PB by like almost a minute. So now we're coming up to Tower Climb. You just jump on the flags, and then do a bubble bash, and then that. All right, cool. That went well at least. So now we're gonna get this spatula, and we're going to warp over to Slip and Slide under the pier, which is the one I just got. Under the pier when I did the jump from the slide. So now we're Patrick because he is supposed to get that with the Freezy Fruit, but that's not how we did it. Then you jump into this, and you hit these 2 tikis. Now, there's actually another way to do this, which is waiting for the cycle, but this is faster by about 2 or 3 seconds. And then, oh, I missed. Okay, cool. So we're gonna have to end up waiting for the cycle. you're supposed to destroy that tent, and if you hop into the water as you're throwing it, you can die and then skip the cutscene. That saves about 10-20 seconds, and then you get a golden spatula for destroying the tent. So now we're at 16, so we have enough. We had enough to get into the Poseidon at 15, but there are still other fast spatulas. So basically now what we're doing is, since we did Sponge Glide, we're doing the entire level backwards. And these boxes are methods of transportation, and normally you have to open up both, but since we went through the back, it says, oh, you have the second one open, so you must have well had the first one open, right? So it just opens the first one for you, which is really convenient in a lot of areas. There's only one box in the game I can think that doesn't do that. Patrick's looking mad. And then we get another golden spatula just by going backwards.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
So then you jump over to this platform. You get this sock. And then you jump down here. And, oh, that's unfortunate. And then you're supposed to get another sock down there. So now we're gonna do the Poseidon, which is sadly another downtime segment. There's action, but there's also downtime as well. Because you have to defeat Robot Sandy, and it's some waiting, sadly. We would skip this boss fight if we could, but if we do, there's a way to skip it, but if we do, we can't do a cruise boost later. And the cruise boost saves multiple minutes over not doing the boss fight. So it's needed. So right now I'm just manipulating her to slam early so we can slam early. And
Now the robot's taking a beating out there.
So do you have to get a backup sock somewhere?
yeah, there's a couple backup socks I have in preparation of that one frame one.
The robot better change tactics.
And the one at the end of doing that one's really finicky as well. So I have two backup socks I can do. One of which is TV Sock, which is one of the slowest, but it's also one of the easiest. So now we're Patrick, and she's doing some clothesline stuff. And then what we do here is we slam on the ground, and then she decapitates, and we pick her head up and throw it into the
losing
stadium,
its head.
like the
What a
scoreboard.
shocking takedown
And
by
you do that 3
Patrick.
times.
Sounds more brutal when you say it like that.
There's the fish and house over there. So I guess now would be a good time to talk about boss fight triggers, because a couple of the boss fights have triggers, a couple of them don't. And that's because later in the development cycle, there were 2 people making the bosses, and one of them left the triggers in and one of them didn't. So there are some boss fights we can just completely skip,
nice
but the 2 main boss fights that give the power-ups that we need,
move by
we can't,
Patrick.
which is really unfortunate, because if we could skip these fights, we could save upwards of 5 to 7 minutes if we could keep the power-up with us. But it provides a little mental preparation time for the next section, because the next section has there's a 2-minute section with 2 parts of RNG, and then right after that there's a 2-minute
Wow,
split
I've
that
never
kills
seen
a
such an
lot of
electrifying
runs.
match.
So we're gonna see how those go. We're gonna see if I get good RNG. So now we're back at SpongeBob. She's still gonna do the clothesline stuff. She does the people's elbow to the floor first, though. So this time she does the clothesline stuff, and then
The
she
old
comes and
clothesline
she
move.
jumps onto you, or she attempts to. But if you move out of the way, you can jump and then slam, and then
Whoa,
there's a button on
what
her
an
head
opening
that she
for
just
a
holds
guy
out for you to
literally
hit.
filled with
And
openings.
then once you hit that button 3 times, the fight is
Oh,
over.
what an uppercut!
The only other boss fight we actually have to do after this is Robo Patrick, and that one gives us
Nice
the
move by
cruise bubbles
SpongeBob.
that we
This
need
match
to do
is
these cruise
just
boosts
about
later.
over.
So, and that one doesn't happen for another like 20-ish minutes. So we'll have some good fun. We have some good fun segments to come up. And we're almost done.
So what exactly is happening story-wise in this game?
So what's happening is Plankton has taken it upon himself to think, oh, I'm going to take over the world with a bunch of robots. And SpongeBob's like, no, I won't let you. And then he's like, collect 75 spatulas and I'll let you fight me. So we're collecting 75 spatulas by killing robots and doing all that good stuff. And then we're going to go fight Plankton at the end of the game. Now, this game has been begged to have a remaster forever because it's a part of a lot of people's childhood, myself included. And THQ Nordic actually tweeted out about, I don't remember how long it was ago, about maybe 3 months, that they're remastering a bunch of games, and like the third or fourth one on the list said SpongeBob SquarePants. So either this, TSSM, or TOS is getting a remaster because those were the only good SpongeBob games, really. Because all the other ones just flopped. Creature from the Krusty Krab was okay. So now what we're about to do is we're doing a trick called SpongeBall storage, which basically, it allows you to store the SpongeBall, and you can use it at a later time. So what we do is we store the SpongeBall, we go on top of Shady Shoals, and we get in this pipe. Oh no, not Shady Shoals, the police station. And then we bounce, and we skip an entire section. So now we're in the later area of the game, which is actually faster to do without the cruise boost. So we can do a bunch of cool damage boost looking stuff, and it allows us to skip a lot of the game. So this is the chum bucket. As you can see, he's saying 75 golden spatulas, and you can come in. So what I just did there were invincibility frames after you get out of a cutscene, and I just hit those tikis there while I was in those frames. So we got another golden spatula, and now we have to go do the Krusty Krab because it's been infiltrated by robots. Go figure. If Plankton's handling the robots, he's going to be like, hey, go infect the Krusty Krab, see if you can get the formula. So this is a short little fight you do. Kill this Chuck. Activate these. Go up here. Get hit by another Chuck. Kill this Sleepy Time. Bull. Kill that Chuck.
I feel like I should be poking.
And this is the only wrong warp I can think of in the game. It says collect your reward, and you're supposed to warp back to him, but if you just warp to any spatula in Bikini Bottom, it takes you. So now we're about to go into SpongeBob's Dream, which is, like I said, one of the hardest sections in the run. There's 2 nasty damage boosts and 1 clip that you have to do that can sometimes be inconsistent. And Gary's here. Gary, come home. So what we're about to do right here is slide skip. There are multiple setups for this, but I'm going to do the one that's most consistent. So what you do is you clip into the block, jump on the spikes, use your invincibility frames, and then jump on this trampoline and completely skip having to do Sandy Stream casually because it is slow. And now we're going to go into Squidward Stream and then immediately leave because with the cruise boost, you can do this level in about 30 seconds. So now we're going to do oil skip, and this is the pinnacle of I'm a beginner, so I don't do this. There is a huge fight, usually, over how to do this skip. There are multiple setups. Multiple people say it doesn't work. Multiple people say it does work. And I got it first try because that setup is my personal favorite. There's a couple of them you can do, but basically he shoots the oil, you jump, you go forward and you jump, and you get hit by the oil, and then the oil proceeds to damage you, and you slide off the floor, so it's not a 1 frame. Because if you had to do that, there is a 1 frame setup called Quick Slick, which you would slide into the spatula, but no one does that except Shift because it's too inconsistent. So now we're gonna do I'm gonna attempt a skip called Forbidden Skip, and it's called Forbidden Skip because it is usually forbidden. No one really does it. Oh, okay, all right. We'll just do the backup. It's no big deal. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to damage boost yourself off those spikes, and you land down there on the very last platform. And normally you're supposed to have a beach ball, but apparently the developers put it low enough to where if you just do a double jump, you can reach it.
Yeah, the stage is very difficult, and he's pulling off a lot of hard tricks.
Yeah, Forbidden Skip is one of the hardest in the run. Dream really is brutal. I'm very glad it went that well. So now I warp to Mr. Krabs, and we don't pay him. We're gonna pull a stack. We're gonna get that sock. Now, since I missed 2 socks, we're going to have to get every sock possible in this split. So we're going to do the worldwide favorite TV sock, which it can take up to like 3 swipes, I think, but we got it first try, which is completely random.
The king of non-contact sports.
So thank
All
you.
skill.
Game. All skill, 100% skill. So now we're in the Murmler, and actually I find this split harder than Dream, but a lot of people say no, it's not. So there is a couple of really weird ledge grabs in here. There's a couple of sequence breaks, and you also get to see a boss that we fight later, so that's cool. So there's this ARF robot who sends a bunch of other robots to kill you, and you just kind of walk by him, and then you just kind of, oh, that's not gonna make it. So you just ledge grab up here and skip doing a bunch of bowling section, and you can just grab that spatula early. And off to the next place we go. This is main chamber. This is where most of Murmler takes place. And Squidward's here. So you're gonna be seeing these turnstile type things. You bowl into them and they move. Oh, we got that first try. Let's go. That's not a 1 frame, but it's very, very tight. So now we're coming up to funnel machines, which is really, really finicky with the physics in this game. This one especially, I'm going to do it first because it's really finicky. So you're supposed to hit the 3... You didn't need to slam there, bud. All right, that's cool. We're just going to get a new melon because he decided he wanted to slam instead of pick it up. So you hit these 3 buttons, and Mermaid Man is so ecstatic he gives you a golden spatula. That's really about it for this section. And I threw it off. And we gotta wait because there's no death barrier. Hi, Melon. You can see it.
So I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Is it your wallet?
No. It's actually kind of sad that Mermaid Man is not in this game. Or not Mermaid Man, I forgot his name, oh no. He's not in this game.
Barnacle
because-
Boy.
No, Barnacle Boy is in this game. The villain you were just talking about, I completely blanked on his name for a second for some reason. But he's not in this game. For some reason, I guess they couldn't get the voice actor or something. There's Prawn instead. I have no idea who Prawn is, but he's in the game.
I'll give you a hint on what his name is. Ma-ma-ma-ma-ma-ma-ma-ma. Ma-ma-ma-ma-ma-ma-ma-ma.
So now we're at the funnel machines, and if you ever did this as a kid, you'll know it's one of the most irritating puzzles ever. But apparently, literally all you have to do is hit every button once. So we do that, and then we get a golden spatula for our troubles.
It's Man Ray, by the way.
Man Ray, that's his name. And boom, electricity. And for some reason right here, Barnacle Boy sounds like a frog because you skip it so quickly. I guess it was like a well done, but I just hear a frog croak. So we're about to do slide skip. This is one of the harder tricks in Murmler. And you just hit that trigger zone. Normally you're supposed to hit a button, but buttons are lame. So that's Prawn. We come back and we completely skip him later because we hate him. So now we're going into Security Tunnel, which has a couple of tricks. There's one where you just completely skip. You just skip the entirety of this section. There's disco floors, but we don't do the disco. So now we're gonna just hurt ourselves, and the game is like, okay, and lets us up here. Because you can ledge grab. So we hit this button because there's 4 buttons we have to, I probably should have mentioned that earlier. There's 4 buttons we have to hit, and we get a golden spatula. And that button can be really finicky. In one of the old world records, that button took like 3 tries to hit. So now we're in the rolling ballroom, and this section was infamous for a very long time because it was thought you could clip into the cage, and it was only found, I would say less than 3 months ago that you could do it on Xbox. It was known for GameCube for a little while, but a runner by the name of ConquerHacks figured out a setup to do it consistently on Xbox. But that trick is stupid precise, so we're just not going to do it. We're going to do a different trick later in the run, so we don't have to do ballroom, because ballroom casually is really, really slow. So now we're done with Murmelair, and we're about to go to Sand Mountain, and it looks like I'm pretty low on shiny, so we may have to do it backwards. So we're about to go to Sand Mountain, which is a sliding level. We only get to do one slide, though, which is a little upsetting. That was my fault. So you jump all these blocks, and then there's a spatula up here on top of Shady Shoals. So now that we have 34, we can enter here, and we're one step closer to being able to do industrial. So this level is really cool looking. You do some sliding, you do some skipping. There's a fight at the end of it, and we get a snowman. Everyone's in Christmas hats because it's really cold on the sim. So since I'm low on shinies, I'm gonna have to kill this Duplicatitron, and I'm gonna have to do Sand Mountain backwards. So you switch to Sandy here. Normally what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go do the slide first, but since I mismanaged my shiny route, we're gonna do this first, so we can load back into the level and get some more. It doesn't lose that much time. So we hit this button by jumping on that missile, and we do something called lasso stalling, which is where you jump off of a lasso and jump back onto the same lasso again, and we can just skip having to go all the way around and get enough momentum. So this is a Chuck. He can be annoying, so we kill him. So now we're gonna reload back. Normally you wouldn't do this, but I was low on shinies because I messed up a couple things.
Keep up!
No, don't buy that. That would be bad. So the slide we do is Guppy Mound because it's the easiest and the quickest. So we're gonna go do that right now. Now that we have 1500, we can get in. You gotta accept the time challenge. On my very first run, I forgot to do that, so I had to reload and do it. It was really embarrassing. We're sliding, we're sliding, we're sliding. There's a shiny route here, but it's very lenient because the next purchase is all the way at the end of the game.
So what's your favorite SpongeBob episode?
Shanghai. It's a lot of people's favorite SpongeBob episode. Shanghai or Gary Come Home.
Good
Song is
episode.
amazing. Gary, now I know. So, at the end of the slide, you get 2 golden spatulas, one for beating the time challenge because you're speedy, and another one for just getting to the bottom of the slide. And then by that point, we'll have 20 socks, and we'll be able to go get 2 more from Patrick, so we'll have enough to go into Industrial Park. And you want to get to Industrial Park as soon as you possibly can, because after you get to Industrial Park, you get an ability called the Cruise Bubble. And the Bubble Bowl and the Cruise Bubble have really weird physics, where one of them, the Cruise Bubble has priority over the Bubble Bowl, so if you press them at the same time, the Cruise Bubble will come out. But the Bubble Bowl will still try to send you forward, and the Cruise Bubble locks that momentum. So you actually lock your momentum from the Bubble Bowl, and then you do a strafe and do it again, and then you double your speed. And it's really, really hard to control, but after years and years, I mean, a couple months of practice, you can get it down, because it's impossible to move backwards while you're doing the glitch. So now that we've collected the spatula, normally we would go out and we would do all that stuff I previously did, but since I messed up, we're gonna just warp to Patrick. And then we give him 20 socks, and we go into the only heavily RNG segment of the game. There are manipulations for this boss, but for the third phase, he can do 2 extra spins, and it can just completely mess you up. So, we're gonna see how this goes. So now we're about to go and fight Robo Patrick. And Squidward's frozen.
Looks like SpongeBob's in for a rough ride.
So if you stand on this platform, it's harder for him to hit you, and you can bounce off of it, so we kind of just spam B. So we have something to do.
Great barrier reef.
Now if you get hit, it resets his entire cycle, so you have to wait through it again. I've lost a couple runs by getting hit here. It's really annoying. And then you just bubble roll where it says kick me here, but you can't kick because you're a sponge. You can practice 1 frames if you do more 1 frames later in the road by just jumping into the goo.
So what made you pick up this game as a speedy?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What made you pick up this game?
So a friend of mine who I actually wanted to be on the couch told me that this game got into GDQ. And I watched the run, and I thought it was really, really thoroughly enjoyable, so I decided to pick up the run. I've met a lot of cool people from running this game, so I think picking up the game was one of the best decisions I could have ever made. And I was trying to thoroughly thank my friend I was going to pay for his ticket, I was going to bring him up here, but he had something to do this weekend, so he couldn't make it. He never actually ended up running the game, which is a little ironic,
What is Sandy going to do to get
he said he's going
SpongeBob
to pick it
unfrozen?
up this summer since he was swamped with school. So that's nice. So whenever you grab these lassos, it spawns a box for some reason. And you can use those boxes to fly over. And for the first time, it doesn't matter. But after this, he spills goo. And your intention is supposed to be hit through to cancel the entire spinning animation. The taunting animation is shorter by about a second. So you have to place these boxes to be able to jump over and pick him. So we do just double lassos. You can do it with one, but it's way easier to do with 2. Since they're so close together. And Sandy's face is just a bunch of lassoing and then kicking and then lassoing and then kicking.
And the robot is
That's
down.
what Texans do best. So we're down to the last hit here.
One more douse with that
And
stuff.
as you can see, we only have 3 unders, so we really can't get hit.
That was a doozy.
Because not only would it lose time, it would lose even more time because we'd have to go get more. Because we do have to get hit next phase once. So I forgot to mention, SpongeBob was also frozen after that first round. And after this, when he brings the goo up even more, it unfreezes him.
And the robot
so he
is
didn't account
down.
for that.
That's the ticket.
So it doesn't matter what lasso we grab at this point.
That does it.
So
SpongeBob
again,
is back in the fight.
Now this is the phase where
that's
RNG can just
devastating.
completely destroy you. It's pseudo RNG. Because you can stand here to manipulate where he will land, but it's not 100% consistent. There was an old one where we would stand in that back left corner you see on my screen, but this one was found to be more consistent, just standing right there. So I'm gonna try to not get hit by the goo. And it looks like he's gonna be nice. Yes.
It looks like
So now I can go
SpongeBob
back
has an
to the exact
opportunity
same
here.
place, and I can stand there again. I found that bubble helmeting kind of helps with the consistency because it's based off all your axes, and I think part of it has to do with the y-axis. So if you just continuously bubble helmet, not only do you not have to do the awkward tapping of your stick, you can just, it makes it more consistent for me, personally. So we're coming up to the final hit here, and after this, the game gets really, really, really hard. So It's very fun. It's a fun hard though, because when you mess something up, you can just try it again.
Do-si-do and around you go.
So we're coming up on the final hit here. Is he gonna be nice or is he gonna land in the back? Oh, yes. All right.
And the robot
That
is
was
down.
a perfect
The
industrial part. Let's go. All right. So I'm sorry, Plankton, but we have to just completely ignore you and go to rock bottom. So now we're coming into rock bottom. This is the section that takes 25 golden spatulas, but we completely skipped it because this level becomes an absolute joke with the cruise boost. It's actually so broken.
Welcome.
So what I'm doing here is I'm holding towards the wall and pressing left trigger and B on the exact same frame. So it's a frame perfect trick. And I just bowled it away. So it's a frame perfect trick, and there's like 28 of them in this run. So if you do 28 times 2, that's how many one frames we have in this run, plus the jumps you gotta do. And depending on the surface, it can be a little finicky, and some surfaces are easier than others, but the optimal surface are the boxes, and the boxes are basically everywhere. So now we talk to Mermaid Man, and as you can see, I'm moving forward without holding the stick at all, so that allows us to do bashes and all sorts of cool stuff. So now we grab the spatula. Now we're coming up on Museum, which a lot of runners do differently. Almost everyone has their own tactic for this. But I'm going to go ahead and attempt to do the SpongeBob version of Museum. You can do it with Sandy and it's much easier, but the SpongeBob Museum is like 18 seconds faster or something than Slow Cycle Sandy Museum. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. Because, I mean, after all, it is a speed run. Article Boys here, we just completely ignore. Go to this wall, get a cruise boost. You pop off that and you're supposed to land back on it, but sometimes it can be a little weird. You have to get the cruise boost first or second try, otherwise this trick doesn't work because you have to meet the cycle and you have to wait. So now we just jump on these lasers and then ledge grab through this tire, and then you get another cruise boost on this wall. Or this one. Alright, cool. And then you hit this tiki, because if you hit this one, you get all the tikis. If you hit any other one, you don't get that kind of stuff. So we collected a painting there, because Mrs. Puff lost them, just like she lost the wheels, and she needs all 6 of them. Ah! That's one of the more finicky parts of this trick. You can either land completely on the railing, or you can get a clip like that, and you have to get up and ledge grab. It's better than hitting the laser and losing your cruise boost, though. That gets really annoying, because if you do that, you have to go back down and you have to get another cruise boost. And it's just super annoying. Because some of these walls are really hard to get a cruise boost on.
Do we have time for donation?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we got a $4 donation from La Sadly Wi-Fi saying cutscene skips are actually RNG. So thanks a lot for that.
That's an inside joke with him. None of the cutscene skips are actually RNG. I want to point that out, though. All the cutscene skips are done by dying. So now we're gonna warp back to where Bubble Buddy was, and normally what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to do some long lasso, tedious stuff, and we could just completely skip that by hitting this button with a cruise bubble and getting a cruise boost and going to where this spatula is. And we don't even have to worry about the time limit. So we get a cruise boost right there. We use the speed to get over here, get this sock, you come over here, you ledge grab, you get this sock, and if you're low on chidies, you can hit this, and you get this. And you can just completely skip a bunch of lassoing and button pressing and wall jumping and a bunch of slow stuff, because we don't like slow stuff. This is a speed run. So now we're slipping sliding away. You don't have to get a cruise boost here. It does save a second, but that wall, you have to get it first try, and it's really finicky. So now we're entering the Trench of Advanced Darkness backwards because you enter a lot of stuff in this game backwards, and we're just going to immediately get the final spatula for it so we can warp to it. Because the real way to get to the trench was at the pipe at the end of the museum, but that's, we timed that and it's really slow. Alright, we got the one frame. So you can actually shoot a cruise bubble for a single frame. Oh, and it went through the exploding tiki. That happens sometimes because the physics in this game are super wonky. It can go through stuff. There was actually a clip where someone managed to send a cruise missile through the floor. And it was really interesting because of the angle they did it at. So now we're getting a cruise boost, we're doing a bunch of stuff, and we use the momentum from this platform to boost us over here and grab this spatula. So we're almost done with rock bottom. And after this, we end up going back to that prawn fight because we can execute a trigger to just completely skip it by clipping out of bounds with a cruise boost, which I'll explain in a minute. So sometimes you'll hear, if you ever watch this game again, you'll hear a runner refer to a cruise boost as slow. And that's because sometimes, depending on how well your strafe was, you can get a slower cruise boost. Most of the time you can predict if it's slow or fast and you can get rid of it and you can get another one. But usually you want to get the fastest cruise boost you can get. And there are a couple of ways you can get even faster cruise boost. There's one where you do a bubble bowl boost, which is a one frame after getting taken by the hand into a bungee, and that gives you a really fast cruise boost, but it's not viable for the run. And then there's one place in Goo Lagoon where there's a moving platform, and if you do the inputs on that, you can get what's known as flare boost, because it was found by a guy named Flare, and he named it after him because it's completely useless, but it looks really cool. So we just completely skipped the prawn. The trigger is right above where he is, and with the cruise boost, if you press L, it tries to send you forward, but you can't shoot the cruise rocket while you're in a cruise boost. So it just sends you forward slightly. So you can just clip out of bounds. So what we're doing right here is normally you're supposed to pay that clam and it unlocks a button, but the button never loads out. It's always there. So you can just hit it with a cruise bow. You actually go over there and hit it with a melon as well if you throw it properly. So now we're just going to get a cruise boost, and we're going to grab this spatula. And what's coming up is we're about to do a kids. We're about to help some kids, which you can also help some kids if you go to the link down below and you donate some money. It'll help. It'll go to a good charity. So this section is really, really unpredictable because if you don't get a cruise boost first try, the cycle's messed up. All right, we got the first try cruise boost, and we drowned. I'm gonna reload the level. So the reason this section you have to get the first try cruise boost is because of the cycle they're on, and it's done off a death cycle, which is why I'm killing myself right here. And we know what the cycle is off of a death, and we know what it is off of a one try cruise boost. Now, if you get bad RNG, which I'm hoping I get, you could actually get a second try cruise boost, but you have to be really, really careful on doing it. Some people do it off a load cycle, but it's too inconsistent for me for off a load cycle. So normally we just die. This first kid is RNG with this. Sometimes if you do reverse cruise boost kids, which is where you skip another part of the cruise boost animation, the very last kid is actually RNG. Not the very last kid, the fourth kid. But with this route, that's predictable. It's the first one that's RNG. And we got good RNG, so we're good. We made up for that little mess up. So now that we've saved all the children, we can talk to Mrs. Puff, and she's so happy she gives us a free golden spatula. And since we have the cruise boost, we move backwards while we have the spatula, because the game is trying to send him forward, but it's also trying to stop him. So, and then what we do is we come over here, and if you ever play the game casually, you'll know this robot. You gotta do connect the towers, all that stupid stuff. Or what you can do is you just wait until late game, and you can hit him with a cruise bubble, and then it still counts. So we're done with Goo Lagoon. That section is really, really hard for beginners as well. This game is kind of brutal to beginners. So I lied. We're going back to downtown Bikini Bottom for 30 seconds. This is the fastest split in the game for me. And it's also a good time to mention, as you notice, SpongeBob didn't have any arms right there because all of his limbs are separate entities. His legs, his arms, his body, and his eyes, I believe, are separate entities. And what we did is we shot the cruise bubble in the very first frame we loaded in, and his arms didn't have time to load in yet, so it just looks kind of funny. There's actually no use for it. So we get this spatula. And then we're going to go back to Jellyfish Fields. Hopefully it goes better this time. So I'm about to show you the very full extent of what disabling the hand can do. This is probably the biggest thing you can do with disabling the hand. And that's just, you go out of bounds right here, and you could literally skip the entire Jellyfish Cave section. You don't have to do it. And normally you have to do the section with Patrick. There's puzzles that are really hard to solve, not hard to solve, but really long. And we can just completely skip it, and you can actually see inside of Jellyfish Caves while we're doing this. There's a sock in there that for 100% for the longest time he had to do it casually, but someone found a way to clip out of bounds and do it with SpongeBob, so that was really, really cool. So now we're going to clip back in bounds because we have to get this next spatula, so we're just going to jump through the slide because physics. There's a ledge you can grab right here, and we're going to shoot this. We're going to go ahead and shoot this button from here. So it opens that, and then we're going to get a cruise boost on this box. We're going to skip some signs. I hope I don't bubble bowl out of them because that gets rid of the cruise boost. And then we're going to get rid of the cruise boost here so we can collect the spatula. And apparently you're invincible when you are collecting a spatula because you can go and goo, you can get hit, nothing can hurt you. So now we're coming up on the split, or on the section that replaced, or this is what you're supposed to do if you don't do ballroom clip. It's called Drain the Lake. It's somewhat RNG as well. So you get a cruise boost there. You go out of bounds, you do a double jump, hop, hop. And just get that. Alright. So now you just hit these guys and you throw them at the fountains and you destroy them. You get a spatula because there was a spatula under the goo. The current speculation is there's a way to get this spatula under the goo, but it's TAS only. It was found by, I think it was either found by 420 or Hazel. Hazel is a really, really good GameCube TASer. She TASed this game a lot. And the TAS for it right now is looking really cool because there's so many things you can do in TAS that you can't do in RTA because the game is so broken. And getting this spatula under the goo is one of them. It requires multiple frame-perfect sand jumps. There's a double frame-perfect bash boost you have to do. It's really annoying. So that's why we do it casually, or you do ballroom clip, either or. So now we warp back to that spatula because it's faster than walking on Xbox. On GameCube and PS2, you do have to go ahead and walk back. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to do Jellyfish Mountain or Sport Mountain or whatever you want to call it. And this is where the next boss is. It's actually the King Jellyfish. You're supposed to fight it very early on in the game, but because we didn't want to do all this until we had the cruise boost, we just go ahead and come and fight him later. There are a couple ways you can get up here. I prefer to let the teeter-totter do the work. You can go and you can do that wall jump, and it's not any faster or slower. But with this way, you don't spawn the tartar bots, so you don't have to deal with them, because they can get really annoying. So we grab this spatula. And sometimes, if you do the wall jumps, there will be two tartar bots up here, and they can hit you off, and that can be really annoying. There's a dude just jamming out on some headphones. Probably listening to the soundtrack of this game. It's actually really good.
I was just about to say that. The soundtrack's sick.
So now we're coming up to King Jellyfish. There's 3 underwear here to prepare you for the most epic fight of your entire life. Holy cow, I did that first try. No, but really, all you have to do is hit him 3 times, whether it be with a bubble bowl or a cruise bubble, so we just come back later and hit him. Because normally he's on a cycle, but we just go... So now we have 9 socks, and the final one is going into Dutchman's, which is in 2 splits. So we aren't going to be seeing socks for a while. So now we get this golden spatula, and we're going to warp back to Squidward because now we have the jelly he needs for his stings. Because he done got stung by the jellyfish. So now we're going on to Kelp Forest, which is 3 minutes, and you do the entire level backwards, and you break it a lot. So we're going to go ahead and bowl a stack here. So Kelp Forest is really weird. There's a way to do the campers, but it's really slow in any percent, but it's fast in New Game Plus. So we don't do it in any percent, but if you ever want to see how to do the campers, you should go ahead and check out a New Game Plus run of this game because you do clip out of bounds and you clip back in bounds, and it's really weird. But if you ever did the crystals in this game, you'll know they're really slow and they're really key, so we only do that in 100%. But we're not doing any of that in this run. So what we just did is we did a cruise boost and entered through the very back level. That's how you're supposed to go and leave the level, but we just entered through it because we are amazing. So then you jump in this box and Mermaid Man's like, beat my time challenge. Okay, cool. So we just started the timer and we're gonna just go back through the box. And then we're gonna jump right here and we just trigger it. And we beat the slide in record time. It took us like 4 seconds. Holy moly, how did we do it?
God Gamer.
Amazing. So now we're gonna go into the Kelp Caves, which again, you're supposed to exit through this door. So it's actually kind of weird because immediately as you enter, you can't leave. There's a wall right in front of me. You can't see it because there's a vine in the way, but there's a wall right in front of me. So what we do is we collect the spatula and then we warp to the spatula. And then here comes the legendary Hey Kid. So the reason that's a joke is on 360, that clip plays in the loading screen for some reason. So you always hear it, no matter how fast you can cancel it. Hey Kid. So we use a cruise bubble when we hit this button to do this puzzle. And if you've ever played this game casually, you'll know Kelp Forest is one of the hardest levels, and we just completely decimated it in less than 3 minutes. Oh no, we have to do the puzzle. No, we don't. So now we're going to warp to Tiki Roundup. And we're going to immediately go backwards. Sometimes you could get a dialogue box from Mr. Krabs, but if you move backwards fast enough, he doesn't see you because you're a stealthy ninja man. So we're about to go into Dream 2, which is arguably the hardest segment in the entire run for everyone, even the world record holder, because there's a trick he does that no one else does because it's so inconsistent, which I'll explain while we're doing the backup for that trick. So now we're doing Squid Stream. This trumpet can be a little finicky. Like that. So normally what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go through a really long series of notes, but since we can jump on this trumpet, if I can get the jump, we can just completely skip all of that, like that, and we hit our head on the trumpet. This section is really hard for beginners. A lot of them don't do it. They do extra sand mountain slide, or they do an extra shiny object spatula, or something like that. But if you practice it enough, you can get it down. Yeah, it looks really nutty when you get it good. But this next level looks even nuttier, I promise you. So we're gonna warp to Super Bounce because we never did open Sandy's Dream. You gotta be careful not to buy that clam. A lot of people make the mistake of accidentally buying that clam. So we're gonna switch to SpongeBob because screw doing the slide normally. And we're gonna do Cruise Boost. Off Larry. Don't hurt Larry, guys. Alright, we got that first try. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to slam into the wheel as it's moving up. Now there's another trick here where you do a 1-frame slide bash, and you actually can get barely fast enough to get on the edge of the acorn. But it's a 1-frame, and the setup is really, really precise. But it saves 15 seconds. And with the current world record, 15 seconds is a lot of time. So that's why Shift does it. So we just did that. And now we're gonna go to Dutchman's. So we're gonna warp to Mr. Krabs, and we're gonna give him his money because we need another spatula. Because
So
we're
that
broke boys. So we're gonna get a cruise boost here. You don't have to, but it saves about a second or two. And then you bowl into here to skip the taxi cutscene, but I missed it. So this section, there's a trick I'm about to do here called pole boost that's actually almost impossible on 360 because of the frame rate drops. It's also not that easy on OG because you only have that very small space. So this truck is gonna try to shoot us, and we're just gonna tell him, lol, no. So you get yourself stuck behind these rocks and you bubble one, so you can shoot a cruise bubble, and you hit this goo tanker. And that stops the flow of everything. And we just completely ignore the spatula in this cutscene right here because it costs a lot of money to get. So that's a no bueno. So we're gonna get this spatula. Then we're going to do the L-clip thing I mentioned earlier. There's another way you could do this section by jumping on top of the goo tanker, but it's only a second faster, and if you mess up the turning with the cruise boost, it can completely mess your run up. You can fall into the goo and die. So we're getting this spatula, and this is one of the reasons I used autosave, because there's a point there where it's actually possible to, I call it a hard lock. Your entire screen turns blue, and your menus have no golden spatulas in them, and there is static. There is no animation other than moving from spatula to spatula, and it's really, really, really weird. I lost a PB pace run to that, and I was so upset. And if that happens in a marathon, you have to completely reload the level and do it all over again. It's really annoying. So now we're coming up to Shipwreck Bungee. And this is the only instance of a manual cruise boost where you have to detonate your cruise boost manually by pressing the left trigger again as it's flying through the air. But it's not that hard once you get it down. So there's a wall jump right here, but we're just not going to do it because we don't want to. You get a ledge grab up here, or you can mess it up. You get a ledge grab up here. We're going to go ahead and slam this time, and then you're going to bowl, and you just completely skipped an entire wall jump section. So now we're coming up to cannons, which is really, really weird, because if you've ever played this game, you'll know you have to go over to the second ship and destroy the lasers so you can shoot the cannons to destroy the ship. Well, apparently, the game doesn't check to see if you've destroyed the lasers, and only checks to see if you've hit all 4 buttons for the cannons. So we don't even have to go over and hit those lasers. We can just completely skip doing that. You can hit this with a bubble wand, it's slightly more consistent. You're supposed to slam it. So you do these floating platforms. This is tough platforming with a cruise boost. You hit this one, you hit this one, and then you go and you hit this one. And you hit all 4 cannons. And now the game is like, whoa, you hit all the cannons. You can fire them and shoot them. And this is one of the only unskippable cutscenes in the game. So we're going to have to watch cannons get blown up. So you hit this button, and it shoots the cannons, but the lasers blow up the cannonballs. they just disintegrate. So normally we're supposed, like I said, we're supposed to destroy those lasers so the cannonballs can land, but game doesn't check. So we just come up here, get this spatula, and then warp to the final boss of Dutchman's. We're almost done with the game. We're almost done. This is the final boss, and then we go to the real final boss. So you get a cruise boost here, and you go around back, and you do a bubble helmet, and you do a bubble helmet slam, and you go up here, and you go up here, and then you go up here, and you do a bubble helmet, and then a slam, and you get a ledge grab, and then you do boop boop. Had enough, you dirty ghost, and you miss the spatula. And then now we're on to the final boss, which is another trigger abuse. You warp to Patrick first, though, because you still need one more spatula, and you got his 10 dirty socks. So now we warp to the inside of the chum bucket. And we're going to bowl through this because we don't like you.
But they don't serve love.
And then you bowl into the door to save frames. So this is the final boss fight. It's supposed to be really hard. It's supposed to be challenging. It's supposed to test all your skills. Well, it certainly is going to test all of my skills of jumping at the right time.
Tactics and fast.
And I jumped a little late.
I guess SpongeBob won't be winning that way.
We're gonna reload. Out of all things to go wrong, of course it's this.
Suck it to him, SpongeBob.
So basically what we're about to do is when he karate chops the platform, we're going to try to boost ourselves up because there's a trigger above us.
The robot better change tactics and fast.
That apparently I can't seem to hit.
I guess SpongeBob won't be winning that way. Yikes! Looks like SpongeBob's in for a rough ride. That does it. SpongeBob is back in the fight.
It's very precise timing. A lot of people have issue with this trick.
That way. Do-si-do and around
I actually had a
you
friend
go.
who tied
I
my
guess
exact
SpongeBob
time
won't be
down to the
winning
second.
that way.
And the only reason he didn't beat me by
Yikes.
milliseconds
Looks like
is because he messed up this
SpongeBob's in
trick
for
so
a rough
much.
ride.
So I guess this is
That
karma
does it.
telling me, hey,
SpongeBob is back in the fight.
Kieran missed this trick a bunch, so now
I
you
guess
gotta miss it a bunch.
SpongeBob won't be winning that way. Do-si-do and around you go. I guess SpongeBob won't be winning that way.
SpongeBob won't be winning that way. All right, there we go. We finally did it. And then this section is really easy.
Will SpongeBob be able to
neutralize the giant robot brain?
brain?
That's tartar skip. Sometimes the tartar will spawn and you can save 2
Ooh,
seconds,
that's
but
gotta
I'm not gonna risk it.
sting.
I'm also not gonna try. I'm gonna try and not pull a conker and miss the trampoline. He's done that twice. So time is gonna end. Time is gonna be when I hit the 3rd fuse. So I'll call it. I just want to give a quick shout out to a couple friends of mine who've helped me make this possible. I want to give a shout out to Tedious. He's a really good friend. He showed me how to do a couple things. And I want to give a shout out to the guy who got me into this game. His name is Ryan. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here right now. So, yeah. And time. And now you get to watch SpongeBob mega dab at the end. This is proof SpongeBob started the dab right here as he dies. SpongeBob and Patrick fall out.
All right, everyone, let's do a big round of applause for ZackSRL and his amazing run of SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom.
Mega dab.
When I
Thought
said
I
this
was-
game is brutal, that it looks like,
Yeah.
you know, oh, you know, it's a SpongeBob game, it's gonna be easy. No, that couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah, it's a lot of it was moving from a CRT and not having much time to practice, but I think I did well.
Yeah, you did, dude. You did super well. That was a really great run. I'm pretty sure everyone enjoyed it. We had one of the biggest crowds we've had so far. You didn't see that, but we did. So trust me on this one. And basically, we're going to keep going with the cartoon block. And now hold on. I'm a terrible host. Can't even remember my own schedule. We're moving on with Pokemon Rumble. Any % passwords on the Wii U with Rubber Ducky Assassin. So we're just going to get ready. Give us a couple of minutes. We're going to get set up, and we'll be right back for Pokemon Rumble.
All right, thanks, guys.
Also, I would just like to point out that we're at $434 raised for Child's Play. We're raising money to help children get video games when they have extended stays in the hospital, so that children can be children and have fun, despite what they go through in terms of health-wise. But other than that, donate generously. There's a donate button on our stream. Every dollar counts, so even if it's just a single dollar donation, everything is very appreciated. And without further ado, we're just going to get set up for Pokemon Rumble. We'll be right back.